I read issue 1 of Marvel Action Hour Iron Man. This is a series, very short-lived I believe, that was a tie-in to the 90s Iron Man animated series. As the cover confirms, yes, the one with Force Works as supporting characters for some asinine reason. Iron Man with support from Hawkeye, Spider-Girl, War Machine, U.S.Agent, Charlotte Witch and Sentry. The cover, the layout, I am alright with the layout. I think it is a good cover image that hasn't been executed very well. This is adapted by Fein with artwork by Andy Williams. We start things off with Force Works fighting a gang of villains. Straight away we have U.S.Agent versus Dead Knight, which excited me. The big selling point for me of this series is that, unlike the cartoon on which it is based, they do include U.S.Agent as a member of Force Works in these comics. He was dropped from the show in favour of Hawkeye, who had never been a member of Force Works in the comics, but they did do an U.S.Agent action figure in the toy line. There's actually an episode that adapts the Captain America vs. Iron Man scene from Armor Wars, and they use Hawkeye instead of Captain America, and that always frustrated me because U.S.Agent would nearly work as a character to having Captain America's place for that. In the cartoon, Force Works were badly implemented, so it stands to reason any comic based on that cartoon would follow the example. The problem is that Force Works are nothing more than Iron Man's super friends. They can rarely accomplish anything themselves, because at the end of the day, it is an Iron Man show. The other aspect is that two of them are more powerful than Iron Man, and they get around that by never setting up or explaining any of the Force Works characters in either the show or in this comic. We never really learned Charlotte Witch's powers or backstory, so she doesn't stand out as anything more than another of Iron Man's sidekicks. Here is Iron Man wearing his modular armour. What do we all think of the modular armour? It is incredibly popular with some people. It first appeared in Iron Man issue 300. It was his new armour for the Milestone. And he doesn't wear it that long in the comics, but there are a few notable things that came along during the modular armour days. The Hulkbuster armour, that was modular armour based, the original Hulkbuster armour. Then there's a cartoon, obviously. He wore the modular armour for the cartoon, for the first season of it anyway. And finally, there is Marvel vs. Capcom 2. And for some people who clearly don't read or engage with actual comics much, Marvel vs. Capcom 2 is their Marvel Bible. All the villains, they run off when Iron Man shows up. I could really tear into Force Works. I hate everything about Force Works. A bunch of Avengers characters that were relegated to Iron Man's cheerleader squad. This is loosely based on the first episode of the cartoon, and the word loosely needs to be emphasised. This scene is about the most direct translation of anything in the episodes. We have a villainess called M.O.D.O.K. She infiltrates and destroys a Russian submarine, almost the exact same as in the episode. Hypnotia always caught my attention. I mean, I fancied her when I was little, but you expected that. Hypnotia is a new character exclusive to the cartoon. She is not a great Iron Man villain, but she's alright. Very basic, but she never appears anywhere besides the cartoon and the comic based on the cartoon. I would guess it is maybe that the production company owns the rights to Hypnotia rather than Marvel Entertainment. I do think Hypnotia would work well in comics as a villain for U.K. That would be one of my things if you put me in charge of U.K. Hypnotia will become one of his recurring villains. One of the key differences between comic and cartoon and then this comic is our arch villain's skin colour. The Mandalorian, in the cartoon, he is green skinned and alien in origin. The producers of that held themselves to higher standards than allowing a villain to be a racist caricature. In this comic, he retains his yellow peril roots. Hypnotia is working for him. So are our villains from the start. Dead Knight, Captain Cold, Human Top, and Great Gargoyle. I hate this, I really do. I hate having all these decent villains reduced to minions of the same big bad. It's the same problem as Force Works, really. You have replaced any character, any motivation, any unique backstory or agenda to have them function as a unified troop serving under the main hero or main villain. The other cartoons, Spider-Man and Excellent Men, e.g. the good ones, they were really sensible about how they introduced villains and made nearly each one stand apart as their own thing. The Iron Man cartoon seems a decade too late. It seems to be looking to Masters of the Universe or G.I. Joe as its template, and it really doesn't work with Iron Man or these types of Marvel characters. We can't just be handed Captain Cold and be told he works for the Mandalorian and that is his backstory. We need to know how he got his suit, how his suit works, what his powers are, why he has it out for Iron Man. In the comics, the original Captain Cold was a jaded ex-employee of Iron Man's company. In the comics, Dead Knight has this over-the-top origin story where he was tortured by Mr. Doom for calling Mr. Doom ugly. In the comics, Human Top never really had anything to do with Iron Man. There is a lot of stuff removed in this adaptation. Any downtime is removed. A lot of bad humour is removed. M.O.D.O.K is almost entirely annexed from this story. He makes appearances in the Mandalorian scenes, but if you read this without seeing the show or knowing who he is, you'll be confused. There would just be this weird looking guy in the background of the Mandalorian scenes. Would you have guessed that we are 10 minutes into the episode by now? We're only 6 or 7 pages in, but we are 10 minutes into the show. The opening scene in this was largely original to the comic. That bit with the Mandalorian was a truncated scene from the episode, And now, Iron Man, he is going to investigate the downed submarine. And in the words of Admiral Akbar, it is a trap. The villains are all waiting for him there. And then, I was sure this was a comic exclusive scene. Think Fank Fook randomly shows up. And he actually looks great, the best art in the issue. And I know he was in another episode of the show, but I was convinced that this couldn't be in the episode because he just flies off and then is never mentioned again. I even assumed that he wasn't real here, that he was fake, that he was a construct. But no, in the episode he appears. The Mandalorian summons him from space to attack Iron Man. That Mandalorian connection isn't explained in this comic at all. Think Fank Fook being part of Iron Man's mythology, that is clearly coming from the Jason Byrne run on Iron Man, which I imagine was being passed around as the then recent Iron Man run to base a lot of the cartoon on. Also, Iron Man wears his hydro armour in the cartoon for this scene. Why didn't he wear it in the comic? Then we get to a scene that illustrates Force Works' lack of characterization. This is the perfect chance in the comic to exposit, or maybe clue us in on one or two of them. Give us something to go on. But it only has each member worried and concerned about Iron Man. They are props around Iron Man. To really demonise this comic, the show somehow does Force Works better, and Force Works are terrible in the show. They really should just not have bothered with Force Works in either. Iron Man and maybe War Machine is all you need. Here, I thought that Think Fank Fook was made of this green sludge shit. But he wasn't. And then we have some incorrect text boxing here. Some of War Machine's dialogue is meant to be given to Iron Man. Or maybe War Machine has started having an identity crisis and believes that he is Iron Man now. And then we have Iron Man and Force Works versus Mandalorian-controlled zombies. One thing I do like is that they're not the lame sludge monsters that they are in the cartoon. They are almost proper zombie-looking zombies in this. But then we have Sentry, the new character from Force Works. He hasn't been set up in this comic. He hasn't been set up in the show either. But he is so powerful that he can wave his hands and turn all the zombies back to normal humans. What's the point of Iron Man then? Have Sentry wave his hands and fix things with his magic staff. Didn't bother with this Iron Man fella. Here is a shot of Force Works, which isn't very good, all down to Hawkeye looking vacantly dreadful. I think this is a weird adaptation because it is both better and worse in many ways. I find it less boring than the cartoon. That is one thing. The cartoon is dull. It's never exciting in the cartoon whenever anything happens. And in the cartoon, Charlotte Witch gets thrown through a glass window. And that is never exciting somehow. The comic is so fast-paced and not bothered about setup or even payoff that it is light reading. The bit with Mandalorian punishing Captain Cold is something I would point to as objectively better in the comic than the show. It feels cold and mean in the comic. It goes on for a whole minute in the show. I don't recommend this. It's a curiosity, but not much else. 7 thumbs up time.